Congressman Darin LaHood on the road, checking out a couple of different hearings, dealing with the Intelligence Committee that he's on. And I had a chance to chat with him yesterday. Of course, in a previous segment, we heard his thoughts about Democrats pushing for immigration reform and work visas for those here recently seeking asylum and those here undocumented as well. He says that that conversation can't happen without an immediate closure of the border to prevent more people from coming in, including drugs and human trafficking and so on. But had the chance to talk with the congressman about the Intelligence Committee, why he was on the road. Also, we talk about BRICS, which is Brazil, India, China, Russia, and Syria, and looking at possibly an economic group that how that could impact the United States. So I asked him about that as well. We also talked about FISA. We talked about the Farm Bill and possibility of an impeachment inquiry against President Joe Biden. So let's start with why he was on the road as part of the Intelligence Committee.
Well, I'm proud to serve on the new committee on the strategic competition against the CCP, the Communist Chinese Party. This was a bipartisan committee created by Speaker McCarthy that really looks at two things, Greg. One is exposing the malign activities of the CCP and what they continue to do, whether it's supporting Putin in Ukraine, whether it's the South China Sea, what they're doing in Taiwan, the fact that they play by a different set of rules and standards. They consistently steal our intellectual property. They manipulate the global entities like the World Trade Organization and the UN. And so that's part of what we're doing. Secondly is, figuring out how we win the strategic competition from the economic point of view against China. And that's going to be more important than ever because I think winning the economic war against China is going to be the definitive moment. And so we're looking at bipartisan proposals to bring to the Congress to counteract China on supply chain issues, on trade issues, on manipulation of markets. And so those are things that we're looking at. And I think the thing the CCP fears the most, Greg, is bipartisan support against them. And so that's what we're focused on. And the last point that I would make is, make no mistake about it, China has a plan to replace the United States. They want to replace us technologically, militarily, economically, and diplomatically. And the quicker we wake up to that, the better.
So LaHood also talked about BRICS, which again is the Brazil, Russia, India, China, Syria, possibly adding on even more countries to an economic bloc that could challenge, say, the G20 or the G7 or U.S. global dominance in having the petrodollar, for instance. So what is the threat there? Is it a threat to the United States? Again, Congressman Darin LaHood.
Yeah, I know that's something that they were highlighting last week. I think they're a long ways away from, competing with the G20 or the G7 or other, European and nations similar to the United States. They wanted to add now Pakistan and Egypt, and some of these other countries. But there's real debt issues. There's real corruption issues. And so I know this is something they want to make as one of their signature, proposals. I think they got a long ways to go in terms of being effective.
I still think something, though, that we're going to keep a close eye on and how the U.S. dollar is going to be possibly impacted by that type of economic bloc with Russia and China and whoever else wants to join with them. So interesting to hear those thoughts on the kind of, international and the global position of the United States and possible threats from China and Russia and economic fronts. So something else to consider, though, is also the Farm Bill. A lot of farmers out there rely on the federal government's ability to have certain things in place to keep farms operating and going strong and helping with crop insurance and so on. What is the status of the Farm Bill? Congressman LaHood on that front as well.
Well, I think we have to remember agriculture is the number one industry in the state of Illinois. Illinois, for the last 10 years, has led the nation in soybean production. For the last 6 years, we've been second in corn production. We're fourth in biofuels production, and we continue to grow our market when it comes to pork. So the Farm Bill is vitally important. We have to reauthorize it. It has to be done by the end of September. I don't think we'll meet that deadline, so we'll need a short extension. But I remain optimistic by the end of the year we'll reauthorize it. This is a really important piece of legislation that lays out the policies to help our farmers, whether it's crop insurance, whether it's conservation measures, whether it's regulatory measures, whether it's help on the RFS, the Renewable Fuel Standard, and many other things, SNAP, and food nutrition programs in there that we have to look at. So I feel good about getting this done by the end of the year, but it's imperative that we not let it slip.
So by the end of the year, they're hoping to get some kind of extension for the Farm Bill, not really seeing an end to the negotiations by September when it expires, but we'll see what happens in that front. Something else by the end of the year, from my understanding, is the end of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. This is the measure that allows for the FBI and the Department of Justice to surveil foreign actors on U.S. soil or elsewhere. And all they have to do is just go to a court, a FISA court, and request this type of surveillance. What we've seen, though, is a lot of, well, let's say, improper things happening. And we'll hear what that is and whether or not they're going to get some kind of FISA reauthorization from Congressman Darin LaHood, who actually heads a working group on this issue. So we'll talk with him continuing on with that, and then also tackle the issue of the Biden administration, and is there going to be an impeachment inquiry of President Biden? So that's on the way here with Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. Continuing our conversation with Congressman Darin LaHood, chatted with him yesterday about a variety of things. We heard so far stuff about the threat of China and what he's doing on the Intelligence Committee to further investigate that and to combat against that. We also heard about the possible threat from BRICS, an economic bloc that is looking to bring China and Russia with Brazil, India, and Syria and others. So interesting to hear the congressman's thoughts on that. We also heard about the Farm Bill and the congressman looking to extend the Farm Bill temporarily while they continue to negotiate an update. So that's set to expire at the end of September, but he thinks they can get a extension through the end of the year. Something else that expires at the end of the year, from my understanding, is the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. And that's the measure that allows for the federal government to get surveillance warrants on foreign actors, but it's been shown to be used against American citizens as well. And Congressman LaHood very much at the center of this debate as to whether or not to re-up the FISA Act.
We have created a working group in the House that I'm the chair of, and what we're looking at is how do we fix the problems with FISA as it relates particularly to the FBI. I've used the analogy, Greg, that 80% of FISA has worked the way that it should over the last 5 years to help protect the interests of the United States from a national security standpoint, from an intelligence standpoint, keeping our troops and assets safe around the world. But there's 20% that has been a blatant violation of civil liberties, privacy rights, and abuses by the FBI. That's what we need to fix. So we've put together a strong set of measures and reforms and safeguards that essentially criminalize the behavior of what the FBI has engaged in. If you look at the Durham report, if you look at the Inspector General report under the Comey administration when he was at the FBI, those are suggestions and reforms that we're putting in place. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy to get passed through the Congress, but I remain optimistic that this is an important tool, if done the right way with specific reforms, that can be useful for the country.
So FISA possibly going to undergo some changes, maybe strengthen up provisions to hold people accountable for wrongdoing with FISA, but wasn't the only thing, again, that we talked about. I also asked him about the possibility of an impeachment inquiry against President Joe Biden for knowing of his business dealings with his son and getting millions of dollars to the Biden family brand and what all's going on there, and the investigations that House Republicans continue forward. What about an impeachment inquiry? Here is Congressman Darin LaHood.
Well, I think we need to follow the facts and evidence. But I got to tell you, the more that we peel back the onion when it comes to the Hunter Biden investigation, the more troubling it becomes. I mean, if you go back and look at the period of 2014, 15, 16, when Hunter Biden essentially took $20 million from countries like Kazakhstan and Romania and Ukraine and China, and the relationship that he had with his dad at the time, it's troubling. You look at the whistleblower report that came out from the IRS that we uncovered as Republicans in the House. So these things need to be investigated. I think it's also troubling, Greg, that here we are almost 8 years after Hunter Biden did all this, and he's yet to be charged, yet to be indicted. I think people have real frustrations with our criminal justice system when you see the fact that he has not been indicted or charged for that type of behavior, but yet we see President Trump with 4 indictments in less than 2 years. And it's a head scratcher for a lot of people that you have kind of this two-tiered system of justice, or what I call the unequal application of the law, and that's troubling. So when we get back here in a couple weeks, I think we'll see where the facts and evidence lead us, and we'll follow it accordingly.
But my follow-up to him was, does that mean he's not yet committing to supporting an impeachment inquiry whenever they come back and start moving forward with things?
I'm supportive of following the facts and evidence. I have a lot of confidence in Chairman Comer on our Oversight Committee, also Jim Jordan on the Judiciary Committee. I'm not on either one of those committees, but I think they've done and are continue to do their due diligence, and I'll look for their lead on where we go.
So again, Congressman Darin LaHood on a variety of issues here as I chatted with him yesterday and sharing it with you on WMAY. Follow me anywhere, all right? Bishop on Air. It's real simple. Just search X, also known as Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and you can catch the live stream. You can catch the segmented programming and so much more, and all the articles that we put together with the Senator Square and Illinois Radio Network. So follow me anywhere. Just search Bishop on Air. And I got to do this. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, the whole routine. All right. Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk.